Thomas and Friends, Blue Mountain Mystery, the movie, Risky Rails. Illustrated by Tommy Stubbs. Blue Mountain Quarry was a very busy place. Owen moved equipment up and down the steep walls. Rusty shunted trucks of slate. The quarry engines were smaller and lighter than the other engines and ran on special tracks. Paxton, a visiting diesel, was impressed by the hard-working narrow-gauge engines. Suddenly, with a rumble, Blondin Bridge began to collapse. Rheneas saw the danger ahead and tried to stop, but his heavy load pushed him across the bridge. Rheneas was safe. Everyone was relieved. Then they saw poor Paxton, half buried in stone. He wasn't hurt, but he needed some repairs. Sir Topham Hatt asked Thomas to work in Paxton's place. "I like working with my narrow-gauge friends," he peeped. He chugged off to the quarry, where he was met with whistles of welcome. The work at the quarry was hard, but Thomas enjoyed it. Suddenly, a small green engine darted out of a tunnel. "Hello," Thomas peeped, but the engine rolled into another tunnel without answering. The next morning, Thomas saw the little green engine again. "Who are you?" Thomas asked. The little engine puffed off without answering. Thomas tried to follow. "Go, Luke!" Skarloey cried, as he and the other narrow-gauge engines blocked Thomas. "Who is Luke?" Thomas asked Skarloey. "Why does he run away?" "He hides because long ago he did something very bad," Skarloey said. "He's afraid that if he's found, he'll be sent away from Sodor forever." Thomas promised to keep Luke's secret. Later, Thomas steamed off alone to think. "Don't worry, Luke," he said aloud. "I'll find a way to help you." Someone was watching. The next day, Luke emerged from a tunnel and approached Thomas. "I'm sorry I hid from you," he said. "Will you be my friend?" "I'd like that," Thomas replied. Thomas and Luke worked together at the boulder drop. Thomas asked Luke why he had to hide. They didn't notice that Paxton, who had returned to the quarry, was listening as Luke told his story. "I came to the island of Sodor by boat," Luke began. "There was also a little yellow engine who spoke a strange language. While I was being lifted off the boat, I bumped the yellow engine and he went splashing into the sea." Paxton couldn't believe what he had heard. He raced off to tell Diesel. At that moment, an idea flew into Thomas's funnel. "I know what I'll do," he said. "I'll find out what happened to that little yellow engine. Maybe he's at the diesel works." Thomas was shocked to hear Paxton repeating Luke's story to Diesel. "We have to tell," said Diesel. "Luke will have to leave Sodor forever." Thomas had to find the little yellow engine. He chuffed to the steamworks to talk to Victor. "That engine was me," Victor said. Victor's story about his journey to Sodor matched Luke's, but there was one big difference. "The chains holding my wheels were broken," he said. That's why I slid into the sea when the green engine bumped me. When Cranky fished me out, I was in a terrible state." "It was an accident?" peeped Thomas. "And you were repaired?" "Yes," said Victor. "I chose to be painted red, a new color for my bright new life." "I have to tell Luke," Thomas said. "Is Luke the little green engine?" asked Victor. "Yes," said Thomas, "and he needs your help." Later, Diesel and Paxton found Luke at the quarry. Luke rolled up the narrow gauge tracks where Thomas and the other engines couldn't follow. "You can't hide now," shouted Diesel. "Sir Topham Hatt is coming to kick you off Sodor. Even Thomas can't save you." "Yes, I can," Thomas peeped as he sped into the quarry. Rocky and Owen helped Thomas climb all the way up the quarry's walls. But Thomas's wheels were too big for the narrow gauge tracks at the top. They jumped off the rails and Thomas rolled toward the edge of the cliff. "Help!" Thomas peeped. Just then, Luke came around the bend. "Watch out, Thomas!" cried Diesel. "He's going to push you off, just like he did that yellow engine." "Don't worry," said Luke. "I'll pull you back to Owen." And slowly but surely, he pulled Thomas back toward the platform. Luke felt strong. Luke got Thomas safely to Owen's platform, but the two engines weighed too much for Owen. The platform began to drop straight down. "Cinders and ashes!" peeped Thomas. Gears whined, sparks flew, but Owen brought Thomas and Luke safely down. Just then, Sir Topham Hatt arrived with Mr. Percival, the narrow gauge controller. They were confused and angry. Then Victor steamed into the quarry. "Luke, you didn't push me," he said. "It was an accident." Sir Topham Hatt was upset with Diesel. "You didn't find out what really happened," he said, "and the real story is what matters." "Well done, Thomas," said Sir Topham Hatt. "Today is a happy day for Mr. Percival and his engines." "Thomas has made it a happy day, sir," Luke said. "He's my hero and my friend." Thomas and all his friends, new and old, whistled happily. Sodor's Legend of the Lost Treasure, a Little Golden Book. Illustrated by Tommy Stubbs. It was a sunny day on the island of Sodor. A perfect day, Thomas thought, for racing Birdie. "You know that Sir Topham Hatt doesn't approve of you racing," Annie said. "Nonsense! I'll always be Sir Topham Hatt's #1 engine," Thomas puffed. Thomas raced past Gordon, pulling the coaches faster and faster until he reached a red signal. Thomas gasped as he came to a sudden stop. The coaches flew off the tracks! Sir Topham Hatt was not happy when he heard what Thomas had done. He told Thomas to work on the new branch line. What about my branch line? Thomas peeped. A new engine named Ryan rolled up. I will look after that branch line. Thomas went to work on the new branch line, but he didn't pay attention to the danger signs. Suddenly, the earth crumbled away beneath him. Thomas crashed down into a giant underground cavern. Thomas saw something amazing. An old pirate ship. Rocky pulled the pirate ship up out of the cavern. All the engines wanted to see the buried ship. If there's a buried pirate ship, there must be a buried treasure too, Marion peeped. She made a wish that she would dig up the treasure. Not far off, a mysterious sailor stood in his sailboat. Stop bobbing about, he commanded. Sorry, the boat replied. The sailor raised his telescope to watch work on the new branch line. He started to make a plan. That night, Thomas went to the sheds to rest, but Ryan was already there. He invited Thomas in, but Thomas was feeling upset. Thomas rolled away into the night. Then he saw a ghost boat glowing in the dark. Thomas followed the eerie sailboat. A ghostly figure stood on its deck. It glided up to the edge of the hole that led into the cavern. That's when Thomas realized it wasn't a ghost boat. He's got wheels. Thomas introduced himself. My name is Sailor John, the man said. And I'm Skiff, the boat said. We're looking for treasure. Sailor John tied a rope around his waist, and Thomas lowered him into the cavern. I've found it, Sailor John exclaimed from the hole. The treasure? Thomas asked. No, the sailor called back. The map. The sun was rising as Thomas returned to the new branch line. He saw Ryan go to an old hopper to fill up with coal. Thomas knew it was bad coal, but he didn't say anything. Ryan went to fetch some dynamite. His funnel was spitting sparks because of the bad coal. The trucks with the dynamite caught on fire. Thomas pushed the flaming trucks away. They rolled into the giant cavern. The dynamite exploded with a mighty kaboom! Sir Topham Hatt was very upset. He sent Thomas to a siding for the rest of the day. In the afternoon, Marion's shovel uncovered a treasure chest. Her wish had come true. Sailor John was angry. I haven't searched all this time for someone else to find that treasure, he growled. Skiff was confused. You always said we would give it to a museum. Thomas returned to the new branch line. Ryan rolled up next to him. I'm sorry you got in trouble, Ryan peeped. I should be the one saying sorry, Thomas replied. I should have warned you about the bad coal. That night, Thomas hid behind some sheds near where the treasure was stored. While he waited, he fell asleep. Skiff and Sailor John rolled up to the platform. Sailor John snuck into the office and stole the treasure. "Help!" Skiff cried. "Help!" Thomas woke and started to chase them. Thomas raced as fast as he could. His whistle blew a warning to all the nearby trains. "Thomas!" Skiff shouted. "Run me off the rails! I won't mind!" Thomas sped up and bumped Skiff. The tiny boat splashed into the harbor. Thomas couldn't stop. He leaped off the rails and fell into the surf. "The treasure is too heavy!" Skiff cried. "Throw it overboard or we'll be sunk!" "No!" shouted Sailor John. Skiff knocked Sailor John into the water. The treasure toppled over too. It sank. The police soon arrived and took Sailor John away. Divers rescued the treasure and delivered it to the museum just in time for the opening of the new branch line. "My engines are much more important to me than any treasure," Sir Topham Hatt said, "and you, Thomas, are my number one." Thomas and Friends. Thomas and the Jet Engine. Based on the Railway series by the Reverend W. Awdry, illustrated by Richard Courtney. Thomas likes to go fast. Gordon thinks he is faster. Thomas must take a jet engine to the airport. A jet engine goes by pushing hot air out its back. It is like a balloon full of air. When you let it go, off it zooms. Cranky does not look. His hook bumps the switch. Click! The jet engine starts up. Vroom, vroom! The jet engine rockets Thomas up the track. Zoom, zoom! Clear the lines! Runaway train! Thomas passes Percy. Whoosh! Thomas passes Henry. Whoosh! Hi, Gordon! Vroom! Bye, Gordon! Zoom! At last, the jet engine runs out of fuel. Phew! Thomas chuffs to the airport on his own steam. Beep, beep! Back at the shed, Gordon ignores Thomas. Gordon may not be a jet engine, but he is full of hot air. Thomas's Opposites book. Illustrated by Richard Courtney, written by Christy Webster. Thomas the Tank Engine sees opposites all over the island of Sodor. Percy is small. Belle is big. At the quarry, Thomas greets Luke and Paxton. Luke is above. Paxton is below. In the sky, Thomas sees one helicopter. Along the beach, Thomas sees many boats. Harold the helicopter is high in the air. The boats are low in the water. On the way to the docks, Thomas sees Mavis and Diesel. Mavis is near. Diesel is far. At the docks, Thomas sees Cranky and Salty. Salty is short. Salty is also happy. Cranky is tall. Cranky is also grumpy. At the sheds, Thomas sees Emily and Toby. Toby is inside. Emily is outside. At the farm, Thomas sees Edward. Edward's first truck is full. Edward's second truck is empty. At the washdown, Thomas sees James and Henry. James is dirty. Henry is clean. Thomas sees Gordon pulling the express. Gordon is going fast. Thomas is going slow. Gordon must go. Thomas has to stop. You've learned all about opposites with your friend Thomas. Here they are again. Near, far. One, many. High, low. Small, big. Above, below. Happy, grumpy. Short, tall. Go, stop. Dirty, clean. Inside, outside. Full, empty. Fast, slow. There are so many opposites to see on the island of Sodor. Thomas and Friends. All engines go. Thomas and Bruno. By Christy Webster. Based on the episode Shake, Rattle, and Bruno by Daniel Scher Strom. It was a sunny day on the island of Sodor. Bruno was busy with his favorite activity, memorizing the train schedule. Kana's delivering food to the fair, he said to himself. The rocks in Crumble Canyon are extra crumbly today. Thomas and his friends sped past, playing train tag. Want to play? Thomas asked Bruno. You engines are too fast, Bruno said. I'm a brake car. My job is to slow things down. Just then, Gordon rolled up in a hurry. We have an urgent delivery. Bruno remembered the train schedule. There are no deliveries scheduled right now, he pointed out. You're right, Gordon replied, but Vickerstown Lighthouse needs a replacement light before sundown. We need someone strong and fast. Diesel pulled up. No one's faster and stronger than me, he bragged. I'm on it. Gordon told Bruno to go with Diesel to keep him safe. What's the fastest route, Bruno? Diesel asked. It would normally be Crumble Canyon, but, said Bruno, Great, Diesel interrupted. He coupled up with Bruno and the flat car holding the light. Before Bruno could say another word, they were off. Thomas saw that Diesel didn't let Bruno finish what he was saying about Crumble Canyon before they sped away. Uh-oh, he said, worried. Thomas decided to follow them. As Diesel approached the canyon, Bruno finished his warning. We shouldn't go this way, he said. There could be avalanches. I'm not scared of a few falling rocks, Diesel scoffed. I'm faster. Thomas followed Diesel and Bruno into the canyon. The rumbling sound of Diesel's fast wheels was loosening the rocks above. Diesel tried to speed up, thinking he could outrun the rock slide. Bruno slammed on the brakes to stop Diesel before the rocks fell on top of them. The sound of the screeching brakes was so loud. Bruno puffed on headphones from his stovepipe to muffle the sound. Bruno and Diesel finally slid to a halt just as a pile of boulders tumbled across the tracks in front of them. That was close, Diesel said. Thanks, Bruno. Bruno couldn't hear him with his headphones on. Diesel raised his voice. Thank you, he yelled. Thomas caught up to his friends as Diesel's loud voice rang through the canyon. The sound of his yell loosened even more rocks above. Thomas slammed on his brakes as they started to fall. Thomas stopped just in time, but now an even bigger pile of boulders covered the tracks. This time, it was behind Bruno and Diesel. Luckily, they were safe, but they were trapped. If we're late delivering the lamp, the boats will be late delivering to the docks, Bruno said nervously. Thomas knew Bruno loved talking about the day's deliveries. Why don't you tell me the schedule? Thomas suggested. As Bruno remembered everyone's schedules, he became calmer and calmer. I feel better, Bruno said, but we still need to deliver this light. I'll go for help, Thomas said. Sandy and Carly will be able to move these rocks. He puffed away. I should have listened to you, Bruno, Diesel admitted. I have to slow down. Maybe I shouldn't have braked, Bruno said. You're fast. You might have made it. Trying to go fast and slow at the same time, Diesel said, laughing. It's not the best teamwork. That gave Bruno an idea. Maybe we should go fast and slow again, he said. If the sound of my screeching brakes could loosen the rocks from above, it might loosen them from the tracks too. It was worth a try. Bruno and Diesel coupled back up. Diesel chugged forward as hard as he could. Bruno held his brakes firmly in place, holding Diesel back. Another loud screeching sound echoed through the canyon, and the rocks around them began to rumble. It worked! The rocks fell to either side of the tracks, clearing the way. Diesel, Bruno, and the light could finally make it out of the canyon. "Let's roll," Diesel said. When Thomas returned to the canyon, his friends were already gone. Sandy and Carly got to work clearing away the rest of the rocks. Diesel and Bruno were so proud when they delivered the light and the lighthouse lit up. Thanks to them, the boats would safely make it to the docks. Soon the schedule would be back on track. Later that night, Diesel and Bruno met up with their friends. "You made it!" Thomas peeped. "How did you get out?" "We went fast and slow," Bruno said. "Yes," Diesel smiled. "We worked well together, and Bruno is great at his job." Thomas and Friends, The Promise Problem by Christy Webster. It was a beautiful day on the island of Sodor. Thomas the Tank Engine was playing Stack the Tracks with Carly, a crane car. His best friend Percy watched, and the Fix-It engine Sandy cheered him on. Thomas knew he could do it. He was the #1 engine. He kept the tall stack steady as Carly reached way, way up and placed the final track. "Ta-da!" Thomas peeped. "We knew you could do it," Percy said. Toot! Thomas and his friends turned to see an engine racing toward them. It was Diesel. "Nice stack, but I bet I could go higher," he bragged. He backed up to the car Thomas had been using and attached himself to it. "Load me up, Carly," Diesel said. "Hey, I'm not done yet," Thomas protested. The two engines tugged the car back and forth. The tall stack wobbled and swayed, then fell. Just then, Gordon sped toward them. Gordon was going too fast. He wasn't able to stop in time. His coupling broke and he derailed, leaving his long train of cars behind. "How am I supposed to make my delivery now?" Gordon asked. Gordon's cars were filled with tires and bicycles, furniture and train parts. "These items are old, but still useful," Gordon said. "I was on my way to Whiff's recycling plant." "I can take them," offered Thomas. Thomas, promise. It's too much for a little engine," Gordon said. There were 6 cars, all full. A thought flew into Thomas's funnel. "I can take half, and Diesel can take half," he said. "That's a smokin' idea," Diesel said, letting black smoke drift out of his vents. "We can race to see who gets there first," Thomas said. He wanted to prove he was still the #1 engine. Thomas and Diesel each coupled to 3 of Gordon's cars and took off toward Whiff's. Both engines chugged along as fast as they could. As they struggled up a steep hill side by side, Diesel saw a chance to make the race easier for himself. He tilted toward Thomas, causing a heavy refrigerator to fall into one of Thomas's cars. Thomas tried to keep going up the hill, but the extra weight made it harder. As Diesel inched ahead, Thomas could feel the heavy cars pulling him backward. Suddenly, Thomas heard a snap. Thomas watched horrified as his cars rolled back down the hill toward a dead end. He tried to chase them, but all three cars flew off the tracks, and so did Thomas. Thomas and his cars landed in a mud puddle. Percy, Sandy, and Carly raced after him to help. As Carly attached her crane to Thomas and started to lift him out, Thomas could hear Diesel tooting in the distance. "I'm never going to win the race now," Thomas said sadly. "But you promised Gordon you'd make this delivery," Percy said. Thomas knew his friend was right. He'd made a Thomas promise, and he wanted to keep it. He let Carly place him back on the tracks and started heading toward Whiffs. As Thomas was making up time, Diesel was standing still. He was waiting for a drawbridge to come down so he could finish the race. He didn't want to waste his lead. The moment the bridge was in place, Diesel lurched forward so suddenly that all his cars rattled and creaked. As he sped away, he didn't notice that his rear doors had opened. One by one, items tumbled out. Thomas had almost caught up to Diesel when he noticed the cargo littering the tracks ahead. "Diesel!" he called out. "Your cargo!" But Diesel couldn't hear him. He was speeding away, faster and faster. Thomas stopped and picked up the fallen items. Percy, Carly, and Sandy soon caught up. "Why did you stop?" Carly asked. "I still have a promise to keep," Thomas explained. "That means getting all of Gordon's cargo to Whiffs." "We're going to help," Percy said. Everyone started moving the cargo into Thomas's cars. Before Thomas knew it, the job was done. Diesel arrived at Whiffs and thought he had won, but Thomas and his friends arrived with all the cargo in tow. "Thank you, Thomas, for keeping your promise," Gordon said. "I couldn't have done it without Percy, Carly, Sandy, and Diesel," Thomas said. Diesel's cargo might have fallen out, but he had gotten it most of the way there. Gordon was happy that his cargo arrived, but he still had a broken coupling. He didn't know how he would get his cars back to the station. "Maybe I can help," Sandy said. She reached into one of Thomas's cars and pulled out an old hunk of metal. It was a coupling. Gordon tried it, and sure enough, his cars coupled up and he was ready to roll again. "I guess these old things are still useful," Thomas peeped. Everyone smiled. Diesel turned to Thomas. "Race you back?" Thomas's smile got bigger. "You're on." Thomas and Friends. Meet the Engines, an encyclopedia of the Thomas and Friends characters. Written by Julia March. Contents: Welcome to Sodor. Thomas knows Sodor like the back of his buffers. That's because railway tracks go all over the island, to stations, docks, mountains, woods, castles, and mines. Is there a corner of Sodor that Thomas has not yet visited? He doesn't think so. Meet the team. Thomas's closest friends are the 4 engines who share his home at Tidmouth Sheds. They are Connor, Nia, Percy, and Diesel. Thomas thinks they are totally awesome. All engines go. Thomas the Tank Engine. This cheeky little engine always tries to do his best. He may be small, but he is very brave. That is why Thomas has lots of friends. Stacks of fun. Thomas loves to stack his cargo high with a little help from Carly. Teamwork gets the job done. Did you know Thomas is based on an old E2 class steam engine from 100 years ago? Fact file. Home, Tidmouth Sheds. Works with his faithful coaches Annie and Clarabelle. Likes making friends. I'm the #1 engine. Fun fact. Thomas's whistle makes a peep peep sound. Thomas greets his friends with a smile. #1 is painted on his side tank. He has 6 wheels. One day, Thomas got paint splattered over the 1 on his side. Did it mean he was no longer the #1 engine? He began to think so when he had a bad day and arrived late and dirty with his delivery. But Sir Topham Hatt said Thomas would always be #1. You're #1 because I can count on you, said Sir Topham Hatt. Percy, Thomas's best friend. Little Percy loves fun as much as Thomas, but he is not so adventurous. He is happy to let his friend take the lead, and that's just fine. On the move. Old McCall had a farm. Percy and Thomas sing to make delivering cows even more fun. Fact file. Works with Thomas. Likes delivering mail. Dislikes roller coasters, the dark, and pandas. Careful, Percy. Percy likes everything to run smoothly. Before making a delivery, he carefully checks the route. That's what I call Percy perfect. Fun fact. Percy has a lucky bell that he rings when he feels a bit scared. Percy's eyes are green like his paintwork. He is the #6 green engine. He has just 4 wheels. Percy thought roller coasters were scary. Just seeing one at a carnival made his gears shake. But after Thomas, Nia, and Kana helped him face his fears, Percy felt ready to try out a loop-the-loop. He ended up going around and around and around. They're so fast and so screamy and so upside down, said Percy. Nia, the engine full of ideas. This fun-loving engine comes from Kenya in Africa. She's kind and caring and loves thinking up new, creative ways to do things. Everyone loves Nia. A cheerful song. At an overnight stop, Percy is scared to sleep outdoors. kind Nia cheers him up with a campfire song. Fact file comes from Kenya. Roll, pulling cargo or passengers. Likes, traveling and seeing new places. A bridge too far. Not all Nia's ideas work out. Trying to dash over a faulty drawbridge is a big mistake. Wow, I made a new sound. Fun fact. Nia has invented a dance called the piston pop. Nia usually wears a big, bright smile. Kenyan pattern on tank. She has 8 orange wheels. The balloon is bigger than I planned, said Nia. Nia was carrying a train-shaped balloon to Vickerstown for a parade. She decided to take Floaty through a tunnel where the wind couldn't blow it away. But oh dear, what a tight squeeze! With a big push from Kana and Thomas, they just about got through. Knapford Station. Situated to the west, Knapford Station is the largest station in Sodor. Working engines come and go all day at this busy station. Its graceful glass roofs and spacious platforms make it a perfect place for special events too. Sir Topham Hatt, the railway owner. Sir Topham owns the railway. He also arranges all the special events in Sodor. This jolly gentleman is rarely seen without his hat, except when the wind blows it away. Musical mix-up. When instruments for a concert go missing, Sir Topham is eager to track them down. The show must go on, he says. See you all at the parade. King Topham. Sir Topham enters into the spirit of all his events. For a medieval fair, he dresses in full king's regalia. Fun fact. Close friends call Sir Topham by his first name, Bertram. Fact file. Home, Vickerstown. Works with all the engines. Likes, showing visitors to Sodor a great time. He is proud of his shiny top hat. His booming voice is perfect for making announcements. Sir Topham looks sharp in his dapper tailcoat. James, the really splendid engine. Is James the most handsome engine in Sodor? He certainly thinks so. But when he stops fussing about his paintwork, James is a lot of fun. James's brass parts are well polished. He wears a dazzling coat of scarlet paint. Fact file. Type, tender engine. Likes, being admired. Dislikes, getting his paint dirty or even worse, scratched. Dragon! James panics when he comes face to face with a model dragon made for a medieval fair. He thinks it's a real one. Mind my paintwork. Junction jostle. When a signal failure causes a snarl up at a junction, arrogant James tries to push through before Diesel. Bump. Fun fact. James thinks he would make an unbearably charming knight. He also has perfectly buffed buffers. Henry, the number 3 green engine. Henry is a big green engine who chugs around wishing everyone a breezy good morning. He is a bit of a worrier and prefers calm days. Barrier bother. During a power outage, Henry got stuck at a signal. He didn't have to worry for long. Carly arrived and raised the barrier for him. His steam dome is gold. Henry's face reflects his mood. Fact file. Home, Vickerstown. Favorite job? Pulling cargo trains. Likes? Good manners and respect. Edward, the old reliable engine. Good old Edward. He's patient, wise, kind, and very hardworking. With years of experience under his buffers, Edward is ready for anything. Stop, Edward! Quick Draw Bridge began to lift just as Edward was about to puff onto it. He made a quick stop. Gentle, cheerful smile. His linings are red. I'm ready. Fact file. Age? Who knows? Likes? Stories set in the past. Dislikes? Being teased about his age. Diesel, Thomas's friendly rival. This pushy little diesel engine never stops challenging Thomas to games and races. Oh, how he would love to beat his friend just once. Diesel puffs out thick gray smoke. He speeds along on 6 wheels. Coupling hook lets him link with other vehicles. Did you know? Diesel is based on a British Rail Class 08 shunter from the 1950s. Some Class 08s are still in service today. Dirty tricks. In a race to Whiff's recycling plant, Diesel tries to slow Thomas down by puffing smoke in his face. That's not fair. See you at the finish line. Fun fact. Diesel got starstruck when he met 2 famous race engines. Fact file. Home, Tidmouth Sheds. Works with Thomas and his friends. Dream to be Sodor's real #1 engine. Well, we are the bigger adventure club, said Diesel. Thomas, Percy, and Carly formed an adventure club to look for a crystal cave in the old mine. Diesel and Sandy formed a rival club, hoping to get there first. It was a great team-up. Sandy squeezed easily through tiny spaces, and Diesel did the heavy lifting. Maintenance yard. The maintenance yard is where Sandy and Carly work, fixing broken down engines with a smile. The workshops look a bit jumbled, but the duo always find just the tool they need. Carly, the little crane on wheels. If anything needs lifting or shifting, the engines call on Carly. This chirpy little crane will whiz to the scene. Carly's partner, Sandy, is her best friend. Museum mix-up. Assembling a dinosaur skeleton is tricky. Carly keeps getting the bones in the wrong order. Patient Carly. Carly helps Thomas build an obstacle course, but it takes up all her patience. Thomas is very picky indeed. Fact file. Home, maintenance yard. Role, lifting, loading, and helping fix things. Works with Sandy. Fun fact. Carly once challenged Cranky to a lifting contest. It was a tie. There are hazard stripes on her boom. Carly's hook is attached to a strong cable. Laying tracks is part of Carly's job. Let's get lifting. Sandy, everyone's fix-it friend. Sandy can fix anything, from a hole in a tank to a wobbly wheel. This tiny speeder has a toolbox full of scoops, wrenches, saws, and hammers. Yellow emergency light. Sandy's job can get her a bit dirty. Toolbox at the front. Stop, Thomas! Sandy must stop Thomas quickly. Some ducks are on the line. Luckily, she has a stop sign on board. Too little? Thomas said Sandy was too little to join his big adventure club. What a nerve! Make way for the Sandy Express. Fun fact. Playing in mud is Sandy's idea of fun. After all, mud is wet sand. Fact file. Home, maintenance yard. Works with Carly. Likes making sand sculptures. One day, a rainbow appeared over Sodor. The engines wanted to find the end of the rainbow, but it was at the top of a tall, twisty mountain, and the track was broken. Carly and Sandy worked to repair the track so they could go up, up, and over to the rainbow's end. With a crack, crack here and a snap, snap there, sang Carly and Sandy. Gordon, the engine in charge. Gordon is a wise engine who supervises the other engines. He is kind but stern and wants everything done his way, the right way. Do as you're told. Thomas and Percy get a real telling off when they disobey Gordon's instructions. Mystery gift. Gordon has a sense of humor. He leaves some machinery for Kana in a gift-wrapped box car for her to find. Fact file. Home, Knapford Station. Works with all the engines and also Sir Topham Hatt. Likes giving orders. Fun fact. When Gordon is surprised, he exclaims, "Great gears!" Gordon has a huge smile when he races. A big yellow number 4 is on his tender. He has 14 wheels. It's simply not the way to do it. Gordon usually knows what to do in an emergency. But when the switch that lowers Quick Draw Bridge got stuck, Gordon was stuck too. How would he get across the river? Thomas and his friends had to help Carly pull the bridge down and rescue Gordon. "The switch that lowers the bridge is stuck," said Gordon. Emily, the safety engine. Emily is proud to be Sodor's official safety engine. She's prevented many a disaster, from train accidents to Sir Topham Hatt's hat blowing away. Flying flag. When Thomas lost control of a parade flag, even Emily couldn't stop it from landing on Sir Topham Hatt. Confident smile. Red buffer beam. Fact file. Roll. Saving the day. Works with all the engines. Likes restoring calm after chaos. Ashima, the mountain engine. Heights hold no fear for Ashima. She works on a mountain railway in India. When Ashima visited Sodor, her fancy paintwork caught everyone's eye. Fun fact. Ashima's name means without limits in the Hindi language. Ashima has a calm, gentle expression. Hot pink is her main color. She has brightly colored decals all over her. Be who you are and go far. Fact file comes from India. Best friend, Thomas. She encourages him to challenge himself. Likes shunting. Kenji, the silver racer. Sleek silver Kenji is a high-speed electric train who wins races all over the world. Kenji is super smart and super fast, but super modest too. Door for passengers. Kenji's silver face wears a serene smile. His skirts are deep purple. Fact file comes from Japan. Works with Kana mostly. She can usually keep up with him. Ambition to win the Sodor Cup with Kana. Did you know Kenji is based on a Zero Series Shinkansen engine, a super-fast bullet train from Japan? Going bust. When Kana nearly crashes, Kenji busts a fender trying to stop her. Is he out of the race for the Sodor Cup? Fun fact. Kenji is very ticklish. He giggles as Sandy examines his fender. Don't let them get to you. Annie and Clarabelle, kindly coaches. These two comfy coaches travel together, usually pulled by Thomas. They love pretty scenery and like to snooze on night trips. Pretty risky. Crumble Canyon is very pretty, but also very dangerous. Look out for falling rocks. Sleep tight. Annie and Clarabelle are settling down to sleep. Carly kindly puts a snuggly blanket over them. Fact file. Roll. Giving passengers tours of Sodor. Best friend. Each other. Likes. Thomas, except when he makes a noise and wakes them up. Fun fact. Until recently, Clarabelle preferred to travel facing backward. They like a steady pace. Only Clarabelle has freckles, kind, caring expression. The patterns on their sides are different. We're taking the scenic route. Brendam Docks. Brendam Docks is a large port that handles all goods coming to or from Sodor. It is home to Cranky, who spends his day grumpily hoisting cargo between Bulstrode and the waiting engines. Cranky the grumpy crane. This big crane works at Brendam Docks. Cranky gets grumpy when engines mess around, but he always sees the funny side in the end. Hey, enough playing around. Helpful Cranky. Cranky is helpful when engines are polite. He is happy to give Thomas a lift onto Bulstrode. Fun fact. Cranky got Percy used to heights by whirling him around. That's funny. When a truck full of confetti explodes all over Diesel, Cranky just has to laugh. Ha 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 ha. Cranky has a light on his boom tip. Hook for lifting crates and sometimes engines. He looks stern when he is concentrating. Cranky is the tallest crane in Sodor. Fact file. Home, Brendam Docks. Roll. loading and unloading cargo. Dislikes being kept waiting. There was to be a rocket launch at Brendam Docks. Each engine brought one of the rocket parts. Thomas was supposed to bring the battery, but he thought it was too small to be very important, so he forgot. Cranky wasn't very happy about that. "Thomas, the rocket can't take off without your battery," grumbled Cranky. Bulstrode, the laid-back barge. Bulstrode is a big, slow, steady barge. Nothing upsets Bulstrode. He often doesn't even notice when there's a fuss going on around him. Fun fact: Bulstrode likes to hum lazily to himself. Dum-za-dee-dee-dee-dum. He has a very deep, very slow voice. Bulstrode carries lots of life preservers. Rope fender protects his bow. Sea chase. Thomas asks Bulstrode to help him chase the orb of destiny. It's really a wind-tossed beach ball. "Come on, mateys!" Floating bridge. When Thomas and Kana use Bulstrode as a bridge, he isn't annoyed at all. He's just a bit puzzled. Fact file. Role: carrying cargo to Brendam Docks. Best friend: Skiff. Likes: doing things at his own pace. Slow. Skiff, the little sailboat. This little sailboat has big ideas. Skiff loves to set himself challenges, like sailing in really high winds. He only needs a little help sometimes. Lighthouse, here I come. Fun fact: when Skiff gets enough wind in his sail, he can do somersaults. Skiff into bat. Skiff is nimble and a good shot. The little sailboat uses his sail to bat a stray beach ball back to dry land. Fact file. Ambition: to sail to Vickerstown Lighthouse all by himself. Best friend: Bulstrode. Likes: a strong wind. Skiff's sail has yellow and white stripes. Friendly, eager expression. Skiff's inner woodwork is painted blue. His hull is a dazzling white. A new record. Thomas is amazed to see Skiff sailing so far from home. Skiff shouts that he just set a new record. Lighthouse Tunnel. The tunnel near Vickerstown is a favorite with the engines. When they whiz out of the end, they get a wonderful view of a jolly red and white lighthouse against a bright blue sky. Yongbao, the tiger train. Yongbao is from China. This hero engine has made many brave rescues. He teaches Thomas that it's okay to be scared. Even heroes get scared. Yongbao has golden stripes. Yellow lights like a tiger's eyes. Tiger face design. Fact file. Comes from China. Role: preventing accidents and saving engines in danger. Likes: colorful firework displays. Fun fact: Yongbao has a tiger painted on his side as a symbol of courage. You've got to be scared to be brave. A tiger's roar. The engines meet young Bao as he arrives in Sodor. He greets them with a friendly roar. Facing fears. On a rescue in the mine, Thomas admits he is afraid. Young Bao says he is scared too, but he is ready to face his fears to help others. Troublesome trucks. The worst trucks ever. These bad-mannered cargo trucks are nothing but trouble. They grumble, sneer, and fake injuries to avoid work. Dirty trick. The green truck sees Nia pulling a new movie screen to a film showing. He flicks dirt at the lovely clean screen just for fun. One truck is painted olive green. The other truck is painted reddish brown. Hey, my wheel is loose. Fun fact. When their schemes go wrong, the trucks blame each other. It's for real. From Lookout Mountain, Thomas sees a truck going out of control. This time, it's for real. Fact file. Roles, carrying cargo. Likes, getting the engines in a jumble. Dislikes, hard work. Harold the helpful helicopter. Who needs rails when you have rotors? Harold the helicopter patrols the skies over Sodor, on the lookout for emergencies going on below. Farm flight. Nia has cows to deliver to McCall's farm, but she's stuck in a jam. Will Harold give them all a lift? Roger that. Keep it up. Harold offers airborne support when Thomas has to get a submarine down Cannonball Curve. Fact file. Likes, saving the day. Role, rescuing anyone in trouble and assisting with deliveries. Motto, happy to help. Roger that. Over and out. Fun fact. Harold provided from-the-air film coverage of the Sodor Cup. Harold's rotors spin very fast. His voice sounds like a cockpit radio. Eye in the sky camera. Tail fin and rotor. Skids help him land safely. Kana, the electric engine. Super speedy Kana from Japan is the first electric engine to live in Sodor. She loves to race and creates gusts of wind wherever she goes. Sparks of electricity. Kana smiles as she whooshes past. Shiny mauve buffer beam. Slow down. Thomas reminds Kana that if she slows down a little, she'll notice all the lovely flowers and butterflies around her. Electric. Thanks, Thomas. Just in time. On the Sodor Cup race course, Kenji stops Kana from hurtling off the rails. Fun fact. Kana has mirror shiny sides that Thomas loves to make faces in. Fact file. Role, transporting people in a flash. Works with all the engines. Likes, doing everything fast. Kana has to stop at a charging pad whenever she wants to power up. One day, Sandy connected a wind turbine to the charging pad. When the wind spun the blades, electricity flowed and Kana was all charged up and ready to go. "It's not a windmill, it's a wind turbine," said Kana. Riff and Jiff, perfect partners. Riff and Jiff are in the race for the Sodor Cup. These happy high-speed engines just love to complement each other and the other entrants too. Upbeat duo. Even when the track in the front of them breaks, the positive pair keeps smiling. Oh well, these things happen. Hi there, you guys are looking good. Fun fact. Riff and Jiff like to high-five each other with their front wheels. Ready to race. Riff and Jiff are very good-natured. They wish their rivals good luck before the race. Riff's lining is bright yellow. She sports a pink and yellow stars design. Turquoise lining around Jiff's face. Stars are turquoise and yellow. Fact file. Home, the mainland. Best friend, each other. They are totally inseparable. Likes, a fair, friendly race. Cannonball Curve. It's a wild ride down Cannonball Curve. This twisty track spirals around a tall mountain to the north of Sodor. Any engine taking the curves too fast could easily lose control. Poor Kana has learned this lesson the hard way. Verona and Federico, the speedy show-offs. This electric duo visits Sodor to enter the race for the Sodor Cup. They're fast, flashy, and very full of themselves. Fun fact. Before entering the Sodor Cup, they had 27 straight race wins. We've got the wins to back up our talk. Sleek yellow and black paintwork. Like Federico, Verona is an electric engine. Color scheme is reverse of Verona's. Federico is handsome and he knows it. Fancy friends. Diesel is eager to befriend the glamorous couple. He changes his tune when he sees them cheating. No sympathy. When Kana comes off the track at Cannonball Curve, Verona and Federico just laugh. Fact file. Home, the mainland. Ambition, to win every race they enter. Likes, cups, trophies, and cheering crowds. Hero, the wise teacher. All the engines look up to Hero. He is calm, kind, and wise. When Thomas and Kana enter the Sodor Cup, Hero proves to be a great trainer too. Hero has gold boiler bands. Front lamp gives a golden glow. Red wheels match his fender. Keep calm. Verona and Federico taunt Kana, hoping she will make a mistake. Hero urges her to stay calm. Never give up. When Thomas feels like giving up, Hero appears in a cloud of steam with words of encouragement. Being calm helps you do anything. Fun fact. Thomas keeps a portrait of Hero in his shed as inspiration. Fact file. Comes from Japan. Works with everyone. Top advice. There's something good in every engine. You just have to find it. Bruno, the brilliant brake car. Bruno travels backward, which suits his unique view of the world. He loves schedules and routines, and really dislikes surprises. Fun fact, when Bruno gets excited, his lantern spins and flashes. Number 43, on Bruno's side. Yellow ladder. He has a black metal railing at the front. Did you know? Bruno is based on an old caboose, which is a type of American brake car. Whiff, the recycler engine. Whiff's job is trash, and he loves it. He works at the recycling plant in Sodor, gathering all kinds of waste and sorting it for reuse. My name's Whiff because I'm a bit smelly. Whiff wears big, round glasses. He usually has splotches of dirt on him. Bright red buffer beam. Fun fact, Whiff is a bit of a tech whiz who enjoys inventing things. Fact file. Home, recycling plant. Role, processing trash and broken machine parts. Dislikes, anything going to waste. Lookout Mountain. High on Lookout Mountain is an old abandoned rail station. Even higher is a lookout point with a breathtaking view of Sodor. It's the perfect place for Thomas and his pals to have their clubhouse. Thomas and Friends, 5-minute stories, the Sleepy Time collection. Story 1, Busy Engines. It was a special day on Sodor. The railway inspector was coming to inspect Sir Topham Hatt's railway. Thomas, you should be shunting coal trucks when the inspector arrives, said Sir Topham Hatt. He wants to see busy engines. It's very important. Thomas went to find some of his engine friends. He wanted to ask them to help shunt trucks. He puffed to Marin Station. Percy was there, waiting for the mail. "Hello, Percy," peeped Thomas. "Will you come and shunt coal trucks with me? The inspector is arriving soon, and he wants to see busy engines." Percy was supposed to deliver the mail, but he did want to help Thomas too. Percy was uncoupled, and away he whooshed. And where did the inspector go first? To Marin Station. When the inspector arrived to check on things, Percy wasn't there. The inspector was not very pleased. In the meantime, Thomas huffed to the quarry, where Mavis was waiting to pull some slate trucks. "Will you come and shunt coal trucks?" peeped Thomas. "The inspector is due to arrive, and he wants to see busy engines." Mavis had a lot to do, but she decided to help Thomas too. And where do you think the inspector went next? The quarry. When he arrived at the quarry, Mavis wasn't there. Uh-oh. The inspector was not pleased at all. Thomas was chuffing cheerily back to the docks. Percy and Mavis had already shunted a long line of coal trucks. They knew that the inspector would be so pleased. Then Thomas heard Gordon's whistle go peep as he delivered the inspector to the docks. "We must look busy," Thomas said urgently. So Percy shoved and Mavis shunted, and the coal trucks biffed and bashed together. And then, oh no, coal dust flew down Gordon's funnel. It made him sputter and splutter and cough. The dust flew back out of his funnel and landed everywhere. Sir Topham Hatt was very cross. "What's going on?" he shouted. "Thomas, what have you been up to?" The inspector is not pleased at all. Poor Thomas. He felt terrible. Thomas knew he had to make things right. He heaved and hauled Gordon to the steamworks for repair. Soon Gordon's funnel was fixed and his firebox was roaring away again. Thomas steamed back to the docks. He was ready to be a very busy engine. He shunted and shoved until all the trucks were in the right places. He was so busy that he didn't notice that Sir Topham Hatt and the inspector were watching him. "You've been a very busy engine," the inspector said to Thomas. "Next time, Thomas," said Sir Topham Hatt, "remember that you can be a busy engine all by yourself, and a really useful one, too." "Oh, I will, sir," Thomas replied. "I certainly will." And he beamed from buffer to buffer. Story 2. The Lost Puff. One day, Sir Topham Hatt told the engines that there was some damaged track at Knapford Bend. All the engines on the railway listened carefully, except Paxton and Thomas, who were laughing at the antics of a duck that was waddling toward the sheds. "May I remind you two, in particular, not to be silly," Sir Topham Hatt said sternly. "You must pay attention. I don't want any accidents." A little while later, Paxton arrived at the broken track. As he rolled over it, it rattled his radiator, making him laugh. "That was fun," he said, grinning. When Thomas arrived at the bend, Paxton got him to try it too. "Woohoo!" Thomas said with a giggle as he bounced along. "Get up some speed and go over it really fast," Paxton suggested. So Thomas raced backward around the corner and, oops, bashed right into Toby, who was filling up at the water tower. Water splashed all over, and all over Thomas. It put out his firebox. "Oh, no!" Paxton cried. "Sir Topham Hatt told me not to be silly, but I was, and now there's been an accident." Paxton rolled away quickly and quietly to deliver his trucks to the shunting yards. When Toby arrived at the shunting yards, Paxton heard him tell Stafford that Thomas had lost his puff. That sounded serious. Paxton decided that he would go and look for Thomas's lost puff. He would find it. He raced along, looking all around, but he didn't really know what to look for. Then he saw a puff of steam and raced after it. But it turned out to be just Gordon pulling the express. Next, Paxton spotted a fluffy white cloud in the sky. "That must be Thomas's missing puff," he said, as he hurried toward it. Paxton followed the cloud all the way to Ulfsted Castle, where he met Stephen. "Hello, Paxton," Stephen said. "What are you doing here?" "Thomas has lost his puff, and I thought that might be it," Paxton told him, looking up at the cloud. "Up there? That's just a cloud," Stephen replied. Paxton felt rather silly. He sped away as fast as his wheels could carry him. Paxton realized he didn't know anything about a steam engine's puff, because he was a diesel engine. But he knew someone who did know about steam engines, Victor, whose job it was to repair them. Paxton hurried to the steamworks to find Victor. He asked Victor if he had a spare puff for Thomas. This made Toby, who was at the steamworks for repair, laugh. "Puff just means steam," Toby explained to Paxton. "When Thomas bumped into me, his firebox got wet. Steamies can't make puffs when their fire goes out." Once again, Paxton felt silly, but he cheered up again when he realized that Thomas would be fine just as soon as his firebox dried out. As Paxton sped back to the water tower, he heard a cheerful peep, and there was Thomas puffing around the corner. "You're okay," Paxton said happily. "Yes, I found my lost puff," Thomas joked. "At least I learned something today," Paxton said, smiling. "That puff just means steam?" asked Thomas. "Yes," Paxton said, still smiling, "but also that when Sir Topham Hatt tells me not to be silly, I shouldn't be silly." And Thomas wholeheartedly agreed. Story 3. Thomas and Scruff. Thomas's friend Whiff worked at the waste dump on the island of Sodor, biffing and bashing trucks full of trash. Keeping Sodor clean and tidy was a lot of work. It was a very important job. One day, Thomas went to tell Whiff some good news. "I'm fetching a helper for you," he peeped. Whiff was very excited to hear this. Thomas steamed to the docks to meet Scruff the Scruncher. "Hello, Thomas," Scruff chuffed. "I can't wait to scrunch some trash." Thomas liked Scruff. He thought he was very nice, but he also thought Scruff looked very dirty. An idea flew into Thomas's funnel. He asked Scruff to wait right there for a special surprise. Then Thomas chuffed away to gather some brushes and buckets and soap and sponges. Back at the docks, Thomas showed Scruff his surprise. "With a splish and a splash, you'll be clean in a dash," he peeped. But Scruff was scared. He had never seen soap or brushes before. He did not like this surprise at all. With a clickety-clack, Scruff whooshed away and hid in a siding. Thomas realized that Scruff was scared of being washed. "Please come out, Scruff," he called. But Scruff refused to come out of hiding. Thomas asked Gordon to see if he could get Scruff out of the siding. "Scruff, would you like to see my express carriages?" Gordon asked. "They're green and very grand." But Scruff didn't want to see the carriages. He stayed right where he was. Next, Thomas asked Henry to try. "Scruff, would you like to help fetch my special coal?" Henry huffed. "It makes me fast and fearless." But Scruff didn't want to fetch any coal. He was not going to come out of that siding. After that, Thomas asked Percy to give it a try. "Scruff, would you like to pull my mail trucks?" Percy peeped. "They're packed with parcels." But Scruff didn't want to pull the mail trucks. He just stayed put. Finally, Thomas remembered the one thing that Scruff did want to do. Scruff, would you like to go and scrunch some trash at the waste dump? Thomas asked. You don't have to be clean for that. When he heard what Thomas said, Scruff wheeshed quickly out of the siding. He was ready to go. Thomas and Scruff steamed off to the waste dump, where Whiff was waiting for them. Scruff looked around at the dirty dump. I'm going to like it here, he whistled. There isn't any soap and no water and brushes either. He laughed happily, and Thomas and Whiff laughed with him. Story 4. Percy's New Friends. It was a very busy day on Sodor. All the engines were huffing and puffing as they worked, all except for Percy. Percy wasn't busy. He wanted to play. But all the other engines were too busy to play with Percy. Percy puffed sadly to Brendam Docks. At the docks, a noisy bird was squawking loudly as it sat on Cranky's arm. Hello, Percy, said Cranky. This is my friend Seagull. An idea flew into Percy's funnel. I could make friends with animals too, Percy thought, and he clattered away to make some new friends. The noise scared Seagull. Away he flew. Not so loud, Percy, Cranky warned, but Percy didn't hear. Percy puffed into the woods. There he saw a rabbit, with a wheesh and a whoosh and a hoot and a toot. Percy rushed to make friends, but the rabbit was frightened. It turned tail and raced away into the bushes. Farther down the track, Percy saw some squirrels. With a wheesh and a whoosh and a hoot and a toot, Percy rushed to make friends. But the startled squirrels scurried away up a tree with their bushy tails waving. Percy chuffed on through the woods until he saw a bird. Again, he rushed to make friends, but the bird squawked loudly and flew off. Percy was puzzled. Why didn't any of the animals want to be his friend? Suddenly, Percy heard the roar of an engine and the loud wheep of a warning whistle. Bust my buffers, cried Percy. He was frightened through and through. It was Gordon pulling the express. Percy shook from the funnel to footplate as Gordon thundered past. Thomas happened to be nearby and saw what had happened. Are you okay? He asked Percy. I was scared, Percy said. Gordon is big and I'm only a little engine. Then, suddenly, an idea bubbled up in Percy's boiler. Percy set off back through the woods. This time, he puffed slowly and carefully. Soon he saw the little bird. Hello, Percy said quietly. Cheep, cheep, the bird replied, and he flew onto Percy's buffer. Percy puffed on carefully and calmly. Next, he saw the squirrels. Hello, Mr. and Mrs. Squirrel, he said softly. I didn't mean to scare you before. The squirrels leaped onto Percy's buffer too. Finally, Percy saw the rabbit again. I'm sorry for being too loud before, he said to the bunny. The rabbit twitched its nose and hopped up next to the squirrels. Percy puffed proudly on with all of his new friends. He was the happiest engine on Sodor. Story 5. Don't bother Victor. One day, up in the hills on the island of Sodor, Thomas saw Peter, Sam, and Mr. Percival. "I'm off to meet Sir Topham Hatt today," he said. "So I'm putting you in charge for the day, Peter Sam." Peter Sam gasped. "Me, sir?" he said. "I'll take good care of things. You can be sure of that." Mr. Percival told Peter Sam that Victor would be coming by later that day. Victor was in charge of repairs at the steamworks, and he was a very important engine. "Don't go bothering him before then with little things," said Mr. Percival. "Good luck, Peter Sam," Thomas said as he started to chug away. "Being in charge is fun. You get to make all the decisions." Thomas took Mr. Percival to meet Sir Topham Hatt. Peter Sam was now in charge. Just then, Renius chuffed along. "Sir Handel is creaking and groaning at Daisy Halt," he said to Peter Sam. "You must fetch Victor to mend him." Peter Sam looked serious. "No, Renius," he said firmly. "We must not bother Victor with little things. I will fix Sir Handel myself." When Peter Sam arrived at Daisy Halt, Sir Handel was indeed creaking and groaning. "Please fetch Victor," he said to Peter Sam. "I'm sure I can fix you," said Peter Sam. "I think you just need more oil." So Sir Handel's driver added more oil, but Sir Handel creaked more than ever. Just then Renius came along. "Now Skarloey's funnel is broken," he reported. "Peter Sam, you must fetch Victor." "We must not bother Victor," Peter Sam replied. "I will chuff over to Skarloey and fix him myself." And off he puffed, leaving Sir Handel behind. Skarloey was wheezing with worry. "My funnel is blocked," he said. "Please fetch Victor." "Don't worry, Skarloey. I'm sure I can fix you," said Peter Sam. He thought hard. "We need to put some water down your funnel." So Skarloey's driver put water down his funnel, but that only made things worse. "All that water has put my firebox out," Skarloey cried. Peter Sam was upset. He realized that he hadn't done a very good job of being in charge. He puffed along sadly until he came to a stop himself. "Oh no," he groaned. "Now I've run out of coal." Luckily, Renius came by and found Peter Sam. "I've run out of coal," Peter Sam told him. "Please fetch Victor." Renius chuckled. "But you said we shouldn't bother Victor." Then Peter Sam remembered what Thomas had told him. When you are in charge, you get to make all the decisions. Peter Sam said out loud, "Renius, I've decided we can bother Victor." Victor managed to fix all the broken engines. "Why didn't you come and get me earlier?" he asked. "Mr. Percival said not to bother you," Peter Sam told him. "I don't mind," said Victor. "It's my job to fix really useful engines." Later that day, Thomas brought Mr. Percival back to the hills. "How was your day in charge, Peter Sam?" he asked. "No bother at all," Peter Sam replied. "Don't you agree, Victor?" I do indeed, Victor answered. It was no bother at all. Thomas and Friends, Story 6, on Misty Island. One day, Thomas and Edward were given a very special job. They were told to bring Joby wood from Misty Island back to Sodor. You'll need our help, Bash and Dash told Thomas. The log loaders can be very naughty. We're used to working with them. That's right, Ferdinand added. But Thomas had been to Misty Island before, and he thought he knew all about it. He didn't need any help. When Thomas and Edward got to Misty Island, Thomas showed Edward around and then led the way to the Shake Shake Bridge. The logging station was just on the other side. As the two engines crossed the bridge, it wibbled and wobbled under their wheels. Edward was scared. He stopped halfway across and refused to budge another inch. Don't worry, Edward, Thomas said. I'll fetch the logs. Then we can take them right back to Sodor. At the logging station, Old Wheezy, the naughty log loader, picked up some Joby logs. But instead of putting them onto Thomas's truck, he whirled around and hurled them up into the air. The logs flew everywhere. Blistering boilers, cried Edward as the logs flew toward him. They bounced off his cab and made the Shake Shake Bridge shake even more. Edward was more scared than ever. As Old Wheezy was throwing around another batch of logs, Bash, Dash, and Ferdinand puffed in. It looks like you need our help now, Bash and Dash said. That's right, said Ferdinand. But Thomas still thought he didn't need any help, so the other engines rolled away again. Thomas chuffed over to Hee-Haw, the other log loader, but Hee-Haw was feeling too sick to work. Just then, James arrived with Sir Topham Hatt. Hee-Haw wheeshed and wheezed and coughed black smoke all over them. Thomas! Sir Topham Hatt boomed crossly. Logs are flying everywhere. Edward won't move, and you are late with your delivery. Thomas felt terrible. I'm sorry, sir, he peeped. I thought I didn't need help here, but I was wrong. Now I'll make things right. Thomas went to find Bash, Dash, and Ferdinand. I can't do this alone after all, he puffed. I need your help. Do as we say, and we'll show you the way, chuffed Bash and Dash together. That's right, said Ferdinand, as he usually did. Together the engines steamed back to the logging station. First, the 3 locomotives pushed Edward across the Shake Shake Bridge. Next, they oiled Hee-Haw's joints to make him feel better. Then they gathered up the logs that Old Wheezy had thrown into the air. Soon all the trucks were piled high with Joby wood. When the 5 engines returned to Sodor with the wood, Sir Topham Hatt was very pleased. You are really useful engines, he told them. We make a great team, whistled Bash and Dash. That's right, Ferdinand, Thomas, and Edward peeped all together. Thomas and Friends, Story 7, James to the Rescue. One lovely morning, James pulled into Sodor's Search and Rescue Center. He was smiling widely and looked very pleased. Sir Topham Hatt has asked me to be the rescue engine today, he puffed proudly to Rocky. Just then, Toby trundled up the track. Hello, James, he tooted. Sir Topham Hatt has sent me to help you. But James most certainly didn't want any help. At that very moment, Rocky received an urgent message from Gordon's driver. Gordon was in trouble. James immediately puffed away down the track to rescue his friend. Wait for me! Toby tooted. Remember, Gordon's a big engine. You're going to need some help. But James most certainly didn't want any help. I'm the rescue engine, he puffed proudly. I can do this myself. James buffered up behind the big blue engine. He shoved and he shunted. And then there was trouble. The track creaked. It cracked. And then it crumbled. Gordon groaned as the track gave way. I think now is really time to get Rocky, Toby told James. But James still didn't want any help. I'm the rescue engine and I have a plan, he peeped. I'll biff Gordon back onto the track. So, James backed up behind Gordon. Then he pumped his pistons, and then he biffed Gordon's buffer with a huge bash. But oh no! James and Gordon toppled off the track together into a muddy field. I guess I'm not a very good rescue engine after all, James said sadly, and now I really do need help. Happy to help, James, Toby peeped proudly. He rushed back to the rescue center to fetch Rocky. Rocky came and lifted Gordon and James out of the mud and back onto the track. Toby, will you please shunt me to the rescue center? James asked. Happy to help, James, Toby peeped proudly again. Back at the rescue center, Sir Topham Hatt was waiting for James and Toby. Thank you for sending Toby to help me, sir, James said. You'll be glad to know that he's the best rescue tram on Sodor. And Toby was glad to hear it. He beamed from buffer to buffer. Thomas and Friends, Story 8. Edward the Hero. One day, Edward pulled into Knapford Station where he saw Thomas. Thomas was very excited. Sir Topham Hatt has an important job for you, Thomas peeped. He wants you to work with Harold as the rescue engine. You will be Edward the Hero. Edward thought that he would like to be a hero, but he was worried. He wasn't sure that he'd be very good at it. In fact, he didn't have any idea how to be a hero. Just then, Gordon raced through the station, pushing Rocky. Gordon was strong and fast and stern. Gordon is a hero, Edward thought. I must be more like him. And he puffed out of the station. But as Edward went along trying to be strong and fast and stern, he saw Charlie looking sad. Charlie had forgotten all the jokes he wanted to tell the children. So Edward told Charlie some more jokes and made him jiggle and giggle. You're so funny, chuffed Charlie. That made Edward happy. But then he remembered something. Oh dear, he said with a sigh. I wasn't strong or fast or stern. I was just funny. I must try harder to be a hero. Farther along the line, Dowager Hat stood on the platform looking worried. She had sent her suitcase to Marin Station by mistake. Edward raced to fetch it and brought it safely back to her. You are very kind, Dowager Hat said to Edward. Just kind? Edward said, sighing again. I must try harder to be a hero. Then Edward saw Farmer McCall's little dog. He was lost and he was scared of the engine. Very gently, Edward edged closer. The dog jumped aboard, and Edward took him back to Farmer McCall. You were very gentle, Edward, Farmer McCall said happily. Thank you. Oh dear, Edward puffed. I was just gentle. I wasn't strong or fast or stern. I must try harder to be a hero. When Edward finally arrived at the rescue center, Harold wasn't there. He must have left without me, Edward said sadly. I'm not strong or fast or stern. Edward slowly puffed back to Knapford Station to tell Sir Topham Hatt that he just wasn't a hero. On the way there, he passed Farmer McCall, who called out, There he is, Edward the hero. A little later, he passed Charlie, who called out the same thing. There he is, Edward the hero. Edward didn't understand. When he arrived at Knapford Station, Dowager Hat was there. She called out, There he is, Edward the hero. But I'm not a hero, Edward said. I wasn't strong or fast or stern. No, you weren't, replied Sir Topham Hatt. You were kind and funny and gentle. You are a hero, Edward, just being yourself. And Edward beamed from buffer to buffer. Thomas and Friends, Story 9, Belle's New Friend. Everyone on Sodor liked the new engine Belle. She was a big blue engine with a big bell. Belle could fight fires with a whoosh of water. One day, Thomas puffed into Knapford Station and saw Belle watching Toby as he trundled away. Who's that, Thomas? Belle asked. He has a bell, too. I'm sure we could be good friends. Thomas told Belle all about Toby. He also told her where to find Toby's hut. Belle wheeshed straight to Toby's hut. Belle was big and noisy. She made Toby feel very small. Toby told Belle that he liked to be quiet and to listen to the birds singing. I know how we can have much more fun than that, said Belle. Follow me. Belle took Toby to the bottom of a hill. Let's race to the top and then whoosh down, she cried. Off she puffed at full speed. That was fun, Belle said, laughing as she came to a stop. But Toby didn't answer because Toby wasn't there. I'm not good at racing, Toby said when Belle found him. Don't worry, Belle replied. She really wanted Toby to have fun, and she really wanted him to be her friend. I know what we'll do, she said. She raced off to a field full of pigs as Toby followed. "I like pigs," said Toby. "They make me happy." That made Belle happy too. Then she had an idea. "Pigs like mud, don't they?" she asked. She whooshed water from her spouts into the field, but Toby didn't answer because Toby wasn't there. "I don't like whooshing water," Toby explained when Belle found him. "Don't worry," she replied. "Follow me." Belle chuffed off to Mathwaite Station and rang her big loud bell, ding, 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 for all the waiting passengers to hear. "We're the bells of Sodor," Belle said, laughing merrily. "Ring your bell for the passengers too, Toby." But Toby didn't answer because Toby wasn't there. Belle was worried. She wanted to find Toby. She wheeshed away to look for him. Belle found Toby hiding in his shed. "You didn't have any fun," she said to him sadly, "and now you won't want to be my friend." They both sat quietly. Belle heard the birds singing. "That's a beautiful sound," she said. Toby smiled. Then Toby had an idea. He took Belle back to the pigs. Quietly, they watched the pigs snorting and sniffling. Belle didn't make Toby feel small anymore. Then Belle and Toby went back to Mathwaite Station. Toby jingled and jangled his bell for the passengers. Belle rang her big bell as quietly as she could. "Belle is my friend," Toby told everyone. "We're the bells of Sodor." And Belle smiled from buffer to buffer. Thomas and Friends, Story 10, Gordon Runs Dry. One morning on the island of Sodor, Gordon's coaches were late. "I shouldn't be kept waiting," he moaned. "The express is the most important train on the island." Thomas thought local trains were important too, but Gordon didn't agree. At last, Gordon was coupled to the express and he rushed off to the main line. Farther along the track, Paxton was pulling stone trucks. He didn't know that Gordon was hurrying toward him. Suddenly, Paxton's signal turned red. As Paxton braked, a stone flew out of his truck. It hit Gordon's boiler. "I'm so sorry," Paxton said with a gasp. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," Gordon replied. "You can't damage a strong engine like me so easily." "You should get checked for damage just in case," Paxton warned him. "Nonsense," Gordon replied. "The express must not be late." But Gordon didn't get far before his boiler began to run dry. "That's funny," he said to himself. "I thought I had plenty of water." So when he saw a water tower, Gordon asked his driver to stop and fill up his tank. But Gordon didn't get much farther than that before his boiler felt hot and dry again. "I can't stop twice," he fretted. "I'll be late. I must keep going. This is the express." Thirsty Gordon tried to ignore the river he passed, but with his boiler running dry again, he had to stop at the next water tower. Gordon's passengers weren't happy. The express was meant to be a fast train, not a slow one. "I'll be fast now," Gordon promised as he hurried to Wellsworth Station. But as soon as he was back on the main line, his boiler felt dry again. Poor Gordon left a wet trail behind him as he went slower and slower and finally came to a stop. Thomas followed the wet trail along the tracks and found Gordon. "I've run out of steam," Gordon said sadly. "You must have a leak," Thomas said. Gordon wondered how that could have happened. It was when Paxton arrived that Gordon remembered the accident. "I should have been checked after that stone hit me," Gordon said to him. Then Thomas saw the hole in Gordon's boiler. "Don't worry, Gordon," he said. "I'll take your passengers, and Paxton can push you to the steamworks to be fixed." He smiled at Gordon. Later that day, Gordon pulled into Knapford Station, blowing steam from his mended boiler. The other engines teased him, but Gordon had learned his lesson. In the future, he would always make sure to take care of his boiler. Thomas and Friends, Story 11, Noisy Stafford. Lots of engines on the island of Sodor are noisy steam engines like Thomas and Percy. But Stafford is quiet because he is a battery-powered electric engine. One day, Stafford saw some children waving from a bridge as Thomas and Percy tooted and peeped below them. But when Stafford gently hummed past, the children wondered why he was so quiet. A little later, Stafford met Thomas and Percy on the main line. "I know I'm an electric engine," Stafford said to them, "but I want to chuff and puff loudly like a steam engine." "We'll teach you," Thomas said with a smile. "Chuff, chuff, chuff. Puff, puff, puff," Stafford said, copying Thomas and Percy. "Well done, Stafford," said Percy. "You sound just like a steamy." Stafford beamed happily as he raced away. At Brendam Docks, Stafford heard Henry wheeshing loudly. "Oh," said Stafford, "that's another steamy sound I'm going to make." And he also copied Gordon, who honked his horn and blew his whistle. "Woo, woo!" The next time Stafford passed the children on the bridge, he made all the steamy noises. Puff, 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 chuff, 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 wheesh, woo, woo. The children cheered with delight. When Stafford went to the yard to charge his battery, Sir Topham Hatt was there. He had an urgent job for Stafford. "You're needed at Farmer McCall's farm," Sir Topham Hatt said. "You're just the engine for the job." But when Stafford arrived at the farm, making his steamy sounds, he scared the farmer's sheep. "I asked for you because you're a quiet engine," Farmer McCall said to Stafford, "but your steamy noises have made my sheep run away." Stafford heard the sheep baaing farther along the track. Quietly, he took Farmer McCall to find them. Stafford hummed softly as the farmer loaded the sheep into his truck, and he watched happily as they trotted out of his truck into their new field. "The sheep really like you because you're nice and quiet, Stafford," said Farmer McCall. Stafford realized that sometimes it was good to be a quiet engine. Later, when Stafford hummed into the yard, Thomas and Percy asked him what had happened to his steamy sounds. I'm not making them anymore, Stafford replied. I'm not Steamy Stafford. I'm Quiet Stafford, the electric engine. And off he went, hardly making a sound. Story 12. Kevin Meets Cranky. Cranky was having a busy day at the docks. He worked as hard as he could, but more and more cargo kept arriving. Lifting and loading, does it ever stop? He moaned as boxes piled up around him. Sir Topham Hatt asked Kevin to help Cranky. Kevin was very excited. I've always wanted to meet Cranky, he said with a big smile. He couldn't wait to show everyone what a really useful crane he was. Hello, Cranky, Kevin said when he arrived at the docks. I'm here to lend you a helping hook. What do you want me to do? I don't need any help, Cranky replied. But surely there's something I can do, Kevin replied. Just stay out of my way then, Cranky said. I don't need any help, thank you very much. Kevin moved to a quiet corner of the docks and waited to be called. Don't fret, matey. He's Cranky by name and cranky by nature, Salty said kindly. You'll get used to him. Then, as Cranky unloaded some pipes from a ship, a few pipes came loose. Look out! He yelled as they crashed down onto the docks. I'll get them, Kevin called. He rushed to help. Kevin stacked up all the pipes as neatly as he could. There you go, Cranky. All done, he said. But Cranky wasn't happy. That was your fault, he said. You're watching me all the time and it makes me nervous. Go away and stop interfering. Later, Cranky was carrying a crate of chickens when it cracked open. All the chickens escaped. Don't worry, it's all under control, Kevin said as he rounded up the chickens. I told you to stay out of my way, Cranky said, sounding even more annoyed than before. All your whizzing around is making me dizzy. Then Kevin heard a loud crash. Cranky's hook had knocked over some barrels, and one of them was rolling toward the water's edge. I've got it, Kevin said as he hurried to reach the barrel, but he couldn't stop himself, and he fell into the sea instead. Help! Help! Kevin called. Crane overboard! Salty shouted. Cranky quickly lowered his hook and carefully lifted Kevin out of the sea. Well done, matey, Salty said, smiling. When Sir Topham Hatt heard what had happened, he was not happy at all. I thought I could trust you with this special job, Kevin, he said. It wasn't his fault, sir, Cranky told him. It was mine. Kevin was only trying to help. He's been a really useful crane. Well, it's good to see you getting along so well, Sir Topham Hatt replied. Carry on. What would you like me to do now? Kevin asked Cranky. Let's get the docks looking ship-shape, Cranky answered. Okay, boss, Kevin said with a big smile. You and me, Cranky, what a great team.